You're listening to Human Wreckage, where we examine the destructive forces that turn ordinary days into irreparable tragedy. I'm your host, Thomas, and today's story begins on a quiet street in a Houston suburb, a place where nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. Neighbors waved from driveways. Families walked dogs at sunset, and safety felt almost like a guarantee. But on the morning of January 25th, 2019, that illusion was shattered in just a minute and a half. A young woman, beloved, gentle, generous, was gunned down in front of her own home as she set up for a simple garage sale. Her name was Liz Barraza. Most knew her as Liz. What happened to her stunned the community, baffled investigators, and left a trail of questions that remain agonizingly unanswered. This is her story. To know the meaning of this loss, we have to start with the life that came before it. Elizabeth Barraza was born on September 14, 1990, and if you ask anyone who knew her, they'll tell you she was a light, a person who brought joy into every room she entered. She married her high school sweetheart, Sergio Barraza, and together they built a life full of love, laughter, and shared passions. One of their biggest shared loves, Star Wars. Not just as fans, but as active members of fan organizations, especially charity-oriented groups like the 501st Legion, where they dressed in meticulously crafted costumes, stormtroopers, Jedi, iconic characters, and visited hospitals, charity events, and children's organizations. It wasn't just cosplay. For Liz, this was service, a way to contribute something meaningful. She worked in HR on the night shift for a logistics company. Friends described her as patient, organized, and deeply kind, the kind of person who remembered birthdays, asked about your life, and actually listened. By the start of 2019, she and Sergio were saving for a 5th wedding anniversary trip to Disney World. They planned to leave just a few days after her murder. Life felt full, secure, on track. Friday, January 25th, 2019, began like any other day. It was early around 6:45 a.m., still the kind of dim, gray morning where most neighbors were asleep or just starting coffee. Liz had decided to host a garage sale to clear out space and raise a little extra money for the Disney trip. Sergio helped her carry items into the driveway. Moments later, he left for work. Everything that followed happened within an incredibly short timeline, less than 2 minutes. Security cameras from the neighborhood captured a truck driving slowly through the subdivision. A Nissan Frontier, dark-colored, with distinctive features investigators would later analyze frame by frame. The truck passes their home once, loops around the block, then returns. It pulls up to the curb in front of the Barraza home. Out steps the shooter. The figure is small in stature, possibly a woman, though heavily clothed and concealed under what looks like a long wig or head covering. Liz smiles. She appears to greet them. Maybe she thinks it's an early customer. There's no sign of panic. No sign she recognizes danger. The shooter approaches, then lifts a gun. 4 shots fire. Close range. Liz collapses onto the driveway. The killer calmly walks back to the truck, gets in, and drives away. The entire attack lasts 18 seconds. 18 seconds that changed everything. A neighbor hears the gunfire and rushes out. He sees Liz lying face down and calls 911. The audio from that call is haunting, an urgent voice trying to make sense of something senseless. By the time first responders arrive, Liz is still alive barely. They rush her to the hospital, but the injuries are catastrophic. She is pronounced dead not long after. The community reels. Word spreads through family, friends, coworkers, charity groups. Sergio arrives home to yellow tape, cruisers, and the news no husband should ever hear. For investigators, the clock begins immediately, and so does the confusion. At the heart of this case, the thing that has kept both armchair detectives and homicide experts up at night is the surveillance footage. It shows everything, and explains nothing. Let's break it down. The truck. A dark-colored Nissan Frontier Pro 4X crew cab with unique tire rims and a bed cover. The Pro 4X model is not extremely common, but not rare enough to immediately single out a suspect. The driver's behavior. The truck circles the neighborhood before the attack. Slowly, deliberately, not lost. This is a purposeful movement. The shooter. Much debate surrounds their identity. Short, slight build, clothing that seems deliberately distracting, almost costume-like. Was it a disguise? Almost certainly. The interaction. Liz appears comfortable, at least for a second. She doesn't step back. She doesn't raise her hands. She doesn't run. This suggests one of two possibilities. She knew the person, or the person approached in a way that seemed harmless. But what stands out most is the cold efficiency. The shooter fires 4 times with control, then leaves without rushing. This wasn't panic. This wasn't chaos. It was an execution. As investigators dig into Liz's life, one thing becomes clear quickly. There's no obvious reason for someone to want her dead. No affairs, no debts, no criminal involvement, no secret life. She was, by all accounts, the last person anyone would target. So then, why? Many believe Liz was murdered by someone with a personal grudge, not a random attacker. The timing is too precise. The shooter arrived exactly when she was alone, within minutes of Sergio leaving. But who would hate Liz enough to do this? There has never been a clear answer. Could the killer have thought Liz was someone else? Possibly, but unlikely. The shooter drives straight to that house, that driveway, that person. Nothing in the footage suggests confusion. Some have speculated about interpersonal drama within charity costuming circles. Personality conflicts, disputes, jealousies, but nothing uncovered by police ever validated this theory publicly. Another theory is that the intended target was not Liz, but the husband. Personal or romantic rivalry is a common motive in homicide. But again, no evidence has emerged to support this theory. The Harris County Sheriff's Office took the case seriously from the start. They released surveillance footage to the public relatively early, hoping someone would recognize the truck or the shooter's gait. The response was overwhelming. Tips flooded in. Clips went viral. True crime communities dissected every frame. But leads fizzled. Nothing concrete materialized. One of the challenges investigators faced was the professionalism of the attack. The shooter left no evidence on the scene. No weapon, no casings, no footprints. They wore heavy clothes despite the mild weather, and their face remained entirely hidden. Everything about the crime was designed to prevent identification. For Liz's parents, Bob and Rosemary, the grief is indescribable. They became vocal advocates for justice, speaking at press conferences, organizing community events, and ensuring that their daughter's story was never forgotten. Sergio, too, mourned deeply. Their marriage, by all accounts, was loving and stable. But the aftermath of violent loss often fractures rather than binds. The pain, the pressure, the suspicion from internet sleuths, the media scrutiny, all of it took its toll. Over time, they separated. It's important to emphasize this. There is no public evidence implicating him in the crime, and he has not been named a suspect by law enforcement. But in tragic cases like this, families often break under the weight of trauma. The real enemy is the killer still unidentified. If we pull back and look at the timeline, the entire crime from the killer's arrival to their escape takes about 90 seconds. 90 seconds in a quiet neighborhood. 90 seconds that should have been peaceful. 90 seconds that turned into violence. When people hear this case, they ask, why didn't anyone else see? Why didn't more cameras capture the truck? Why didn't the shooter rush? But this is what makes the crime so chilling. The killer didn't need to rush. They were confident, prepared, unhurried. That level of calm can mean many things. But one possibility is expertise, someone who had either done this before or had planned meticulously for the moment. Liz's murder received local and national coverage, but as months passed without answers, the case risked growing cold. Her parents fought hard to keep it alive. The arrest gave hope. It suggested police knew more than they'd ever revealed publicly. But hope is not closure, not yet. Today, the neighborhood where Liz died has moved on in visible ways, new families, new cars, holiday decorations. But the driveway where she fell will never feel entirely normal again. Friends in the Star Wars charity community still speak her name with reverence. They hold memorial events. They honor her service by continuing the work she loved. Her parents keep her memory alive with the grace and determination of people who refuse to let their daughter's life be reduced to a footnote in an unsolved crime. Before we end, let's return to the heart of this story. Liz was not defined by her death. She was defined by her compassion, her love for her husband and family, her joy in bringing smiles to children through costuming, her laughter with friends at conventions and charity events, her desire to make life, even in small ways, better for others. Her murder is haunting, but her life was beautiful. That's what the killer tried to take away. That's what we refuse to let them erase. Someone out there knows who pulled the trigger in those early morning hours of January 25th, 2019. Someone recognizes the gait, the truck, the clothing, the way the figure moves. Someone has heard something boastful, whispered, accidental. If you know anything, no matter how small, contact the Harris County Sheriff's Office or Crime Stoppers Houston. For Liz, for her family, for a community that still waits for justice. You've been listening to Human Wreckage. Stay safe, take care of each other, and remember, even in the darkest stories, what matters most is the human light we refuse to lose.